Are you really struggling with data? Are you challenged with data? Don't you know where to find data? I am here to debunk the myth that there is no data in the Caribbean, and especially for the Eastern Caribbean, Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, and Curacao. I am having these 12 sessions, maybe 14 sessions of every day a session, and today we will be talking about economic growth data in 2020 in the Eastern Caribbean. So if you want to know what the status is of economic growth or economic decline in the Eastern Caribbean, bring your friends. Stay with me in this episode of Data Analysis and Policy Show. Hi, my name is Rudy Camara and welcome to the Data Analysis and Policy Show, the show where we turn data into analysis so that you can create the right policy. You might be wondering, like many of my students, that there is no data, there is scarcity of data, and you don't know where to find data for your economic analysis, for creating policies, for writing policies. Maybe you are trying to write a policy note for what needs to happen in the Eastern Caribbean, and you want to put some graphs in there with the latest data about the economic growth. Where do you find that data? So many of my students, they tell me there are no data, there is a scarcity of data, they don't know where to find the data, and I have thought that in at least 14 days in a row, I'm going to tell you and show you that there is data in the Eastern Caribbean, in Curacao, in Jamaica, Turks and Caicos. So today we're going to talk about economic growth data. But before we start, I want you to sign up on my list, which is the CaribbeanStrategicBoardroom.com/waitlist, because I'm creating something incredible. I'm creating something, and I'm thinking about it. I'm working on it. I'm creating something unique, and it's going to be only for some people, 50 people all around the world who are going to get this incredible thing. I cannot believe that I'm doing this. I cannot believe that I have ever thought about doing this, but still I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I think that that data analysis and policy in the Caribbean is a great thing to do. So today, let me go to my screen and share with you economic data, which is the gross domestic product of the Eastern Caribbean and all the islands. And I have the most recent data. Can you imagine? Most of the time people say that there are no data, there's data only for the past, but I have found data for 2020 right now. What are the latest projections of economic growth? Now we're going to see a couple of indicators for the Eastern Caribbean and for all islands of the Eastern Caribbean. So let me show my screen with you. And I'm here at the website of the Eastern Caribbean Bank. So I'm going to drop that website in there for the comments because I want to share with you. So there you have that website. So after the show you can look at this website. You can find out information in there, and there is pretty much of information. By the way, if you have any questions during the show, just ask the question and I'm going to share it with you. Now let me show you what we have here. We have here the Eastern Caribbean currency union of all the 8 islands, and once you click on this, it is a dynamic dashboard, and it will present once you click on submit, and it will create these graphs down here. So I have to thank the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for doing this, because not all central banks are doing this like this. They are presenting a lot of information. We are using a lot of their information also for our economic models, because we have created 12 macroeconomic models. Of all these islands, we have created economic models, and also for Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, Curacao, and we also have data for St. Martin. So, and we are constantly building on this economic models, and these economic models are in spreadsheets, and what you can do with them is simulation. You can use them for analysis. You can do a lot of things with them. They can help you with writing policies, etc., etc. So they're going to help you create a great day. Don't take any work back to home, because if you have economic models, they are really going to help your life. So if you wanna imagine, you are creating an economic policy, and you're writing, and you want to talk about gross domestic product, which is the GDP. You want to talk about the debt, the debt to GDP ratio. So how much is the percentage of the debt compared to the GDP, the gross domestic product? And also you want to know what is the inflation. Now the debt to GDP, most of the time it needs to be up to 60%, because in Europe it is 60%. If you are above on 60%, it is a little bit, you are an indebted island. And if you are below 60%, you are okay. Now a good target for growth of the economy might be 5%. So if you are below 5%, you are not growing your economy enough to create enough jobs, etc. So let's submit this, and then let's look at the rates for the ECCU. So this is a target of, let me say, the target is 5%. So look at what happened, what is projected for the economic decline of Eastern Caribbean currency. 15.3%, 15.4%. So minus 15% projected for 2020 for the whole Eastern Caribbean region. Minus 15%. So if you are earning $100, then you have dropped $15 in the Eastern Caribbean. If you are earning much more, 15% is down. That is a huge contraction. That has not happened before. In 2019 it was about 2.8%, and the highest was 3.9%, almost 4% in 2018. And look at what is happening there. Now inflation is going a little bit, is declining. And of course, why is inflation declining? It's inflation in the months. Why is it declining? Because probably you have such a decline in demand and in production that inflation cannot increase. So inflation is not increasing, but it is decreasing. So that's good. Let's look at the public sector. The debt to GDP, so that is debt divided by GDP, by gross domestic product, that is above 60%. It is 65% in 2019, and probably the debt to GDP will be higher in 2020 because GDP has decreased. And I don't think that the debt has decreased. The debt has not decreased, but GDP has decreased. So that's the debt to GDP probably has gone much higher. So that is for the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. And also we have the loans. The loans, we see that most of the loans, 54%, 54.7% is personal loans. Now, if all these people lose their jobs because the debt to GDP is the because the economy is decreasing. If you have more people losing their jobs, then probably some banks are going to have some problems because this personal loans, people are losing their jobs. How are they going to pay their personal loans? Look at what is happening in tourism. 8% of the loans are from tourism. 8% are from tourism. So if tourism is contracting, then the tourist hotels, they cannot pay their bills anymore. So it can happen that the banks also have a lot of problems with their loans. You don't see that right now, but I can tell you that this is what the underlying thing is. Now, I'm saying all these things personally from my own experience, so other people might have other different approaches. I don't have any links. This is not promoted by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. These are just their data, and I am interpreting that data. So if you have any questions regarding that, what is said in this program, come to me, ask me that question. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has nothing to do with it. I'm only interpreting their data based on my knowledge. So now let's look at another island. The people from Anguilla. We are going to look at the people from Anguilla. I'm going to debunk that there is no data for Anguilla because I'm going to submit it here, and let's look at the data from Anguilla. Okay, here you see it. Boom. We have the data for 2020 for the growth of the GDP. Now for Anguilla, we expect 25% negative. That is a serious contraction. That is like 1/4, a quarter of the economy has been gone. A quarter. So if Anguilla has like $100 economy, then only $75 is left. I mean, that is significant, and these contractions are because Anguilla is very, very dependent on the tourism, and probably tourism is their slow, is their non-existent right now. So that is a huge contraction. Now, also in Anguilla, we see inflation going down. So inflation going down, that means the prices are decreasing with 1.3% in June. And that is, of course, there is no economic activities. The prices, demand is lower, so the prices must be lower. And now we see Anguilla debt to GDP. So remember, I said 60% is there, and Anguilla has 49.9% debt to GDP in 2019, and it used to be much higher. It used to be 67% in 2017, and then something happened here from 2015 to 2016 because it went considerably up. So now I expect in 2020, of course, the debt to GDP will be much higher because GDP has contracted significantly. Now, the personal loans, 55% of the personal loans, of the loans by economic activity, 55% is personal loans. So if people are losing their jobs, of course, this will have repercussions. What we're doing here is we are linking economics, we are linking indicators and doing an analysis. So imagine you're writing a policy note, you are writing for your boss, you're writing and you want to compare your island with the Eastern Caribbean. Then you can compare that and benchmark that. That's what we're doing here. We're doing data. I'm showing you data. I'm showing you economic analysis, the second part of the show, and also policy. I'm not going too much into policy right now, but I just wanted to show you this data. Now, this is, of course, let me see, tourism is not shown here. Yeah, tourism is a high percent, 15% of the loans are for tourism, and again, because tourism is down, people are losing their jobs. I expect this to have repercussions for the banks. Of course, non-performing loans might be also can go up. So that's on Anguilla, and now we move to the next island of the Eastern Caribbean, I want to welcome the people from Antigua and Barbuda. All my friends, all my students from Antigua and Barbuda, just here it is. We're going to debunk that there is no data. So look at this. Antigua and Barbuda submitted, and GDP, gross domestic product. What do you think? Minus 17.8%. That is a huge forecast, a huge decline. So this is very, very high, and Antigua and Barbuda has a huge decrease, almost 20%. And of course the prices are going down with 1.0% to let me see, 0.5%, minus 0.1%. So prices are going down. So you could also have contraction. Imagine that the prices go down, that the economy is going down, but there is an increase in oil. Then the prices could go up. So it doesn't mean that always the prices need to go down. This is a demand-led decrease of the prices, but this is what we're having now most of it in the COVID pandemic time. So let's look at the gross public debt to GDP. Again, 70.2%. So Antigua and Barbuda are way higher than the 60% target. It was a little bit decreasing, but I expect in 2019 that they definitely would go through the 75%. So Antigua and Barbuda probably also have some problems with debt to GDP, like other islands in the Eastern, like other islands in the Caribbean. But look at this. It used to be very, very high, 86%, 86.9% in 2015, and there was a little bit decrease. There was a declining trend. Now let's look at the personal loans. The loans are 45% personal loans, and look at this. Tourism is 7.6% of the loans by activity in 2019. So again, here we see these indicators together, Antigua and Barbuda. Now let's move to the Commonwealth of Dominica. Commonwealth of Dominica. I don't know how to pronounce it. Dominica. Some people say Dominica, Dominica. Tell me in the comments how you want to speak, how to mention it. So this is the Commonwealth. Let's look at the Commonwealth now. And here we see a projected growth rate of minus 8.7% in 2020. So this is a projection. It can change because all time we are in September right now, October. We are in October right now. So November, December still has to produce some figures. But here you see minus 8.7%. So Dominica is relatively a lower decline than the other islands of the Eastern Caribbean. And this is interesting because the other islands were about 15% to 25%, and then Dominica is relatively, it is huge. It is almost 10%, but still it is lower compared to the other islands. So I wonder what is happening in Dominica. So if you are living in Dominica, you are an economist, you are writing a paper, or you are doing some analysis, give me a shout to see what is happening there. I have my own views, but I always want to see your views also. And then here you see inflation is going up a little bit, 0.07, almost nothing. So, and then we see the public sector debt to GDP. The public sector debt to GDP is 75%. So it was already going 78%. It was already going up before the pandemic. So this trend, I know for sure that it increased. So this is probably Dominica also has some problems with the debt to GDP. Probably it is caused by a higher deficit on the budget, because like we have seen the deficit also, the deficit and the debt. We have seen that in another episode, in a previous episode. So watch that you can see the debt to the debt and the deficit. They are here again. So Dominica has about 42.2% of personal loans. The tourism is 4.4% of the loans. So also here, people losing their jobs, personal loans, it will have impact on the banks on Dominica. So looking at that, this other is a very big part. So let's move to the next one, which is Grenada. My friends on Grenada, I want to shout out for Mr. Jude Houston, working as the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in St. Martin. And Jude was one of my students in one of my programs, analyzing data, collecting data, and he moved to become an executive director of the Chamber of Commerce of St. Martin. So I'm very, very happy that my students progress and move on to other getting more responsibility, etc. So let's look at Grenada, and I'm mentioning Jude because Jude is from Grenada. So let's look at Grenada. Look at the data. So GDP minus 16.4%. That is a considerable drop. I mean, that a lot of jobs lost, a lot of livelihoods lost, and it's way below the target. So what does inflation? Inflation is also going with minus 0.9% end of the month of June. So inflation is going down. And let's see at the public debt. Now, this Grenada has been actually a miracle in dropping the public sector debt to GDP, because they had a structural adjustment program, homegrown structural adjustment program. It was 88%, and it was going down to 58.9% in 2019. So this is the picture you want to see. This is the picture investments want to see also. But in 2019 and 2020, probably the trend will move up, because the GDP is going down with 16%. So that's why the debt to GDP will increase. Now, look at this. In Grenada, we have 61.3%, which is higher. So it's higher than the other islands in the Eastern Caribbean. 61.3% of personal loans. Now, if all these people lose their jobs because the economy is going down, etc., if that continues, then it can have repercussions for the non-performing loans of the banks. Of course, people with their personal loans, people cannot pay their cars anymore, etc., etc. So this will have impact on the people. I don't know if mortgages, I believe that mortgages are also part of the personal loans, but let us assume that mortgages are part of the personal loan. So this might also have impact on the real estate market, because if people cannot pay their mortgages anymore, then you will see a lot of houses on the market, and that will influence the price. So you see, we are doing some analysis based on data, and I'm here to debunk the myth that there is no data. You see how much we can talk already about these like 3-4 indicators, and we can write a whole story, a whole policy note, doing an analysis, giving a presentation, benchmarking, etc. Now look at tourism. Tourism is a significant part of the loans, 13.2% in 2019. That is a significant. So also because tourism is probably down in Grenada, this will also have pressure on those tourism on apartments owners, on hotels, etc., if they have financed their loans locally. So that's what you see there. Now I expected actually that the agricultural loans would be much higher because Grenada has nutmeg, etc. I would have expected this to be much higher in agriculture and fisheries, but we don't see that here, so there must be another reason for that. Now let's move to the next one. The next one is Montserrat, and I'm going to the Montserrat figures right now, debunking that there is no data for Montserrat. And here we see Montserrat minus 4.4 is the latest projection of the GDP. So that's also low. That's the lowest that we have seen so far. And you see here that Montserrat was quite going above the target in 2019. So it is, this COVID pandemic is bad for Montserrat because they were going actually really good. Here they had a huge recession, minus 3.7%, and then they were going up. They were hitting their targets here, but this COVID pandemic turned it away, turned it down again. So inflation also minus 1.09%, the blue one. So inflation is also going down, and we see here the debt to GDP is low. So this is strange. Let me see. This is public debt to GDP. So this is strange. It is strange because the other ones were much higher. So Montserrat has a low debt to GDP. Montserrat has a low debt to GDP, and that is interesting to study the case of Montserrat. Either they are running budget deficits, and that's why they don't have a huge debt, but it is 6.4%. So that's low. That is very low. That's below the target of 60%. On the other hand, almost personal loans. Everybody, the loans on the banks on Montserrat are almost everything is personal loans, much higher compared to the other ones. So 86.3% personal loans. So if these people lose their jobs, still you will see that higher in the banks there. You will see that definitely. Tourism, 5.5% of the loans. So let's move to the next one, St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, one of the first models that I created for the Eastern Caribbean, I started with the St. Kitts and Nevis, and then I moved to Grenada and created that. And later on, I created the 8 other islands, and I also created Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, Curacao, and St. Martin. I want to create for all Caribbean islands, but of course we have to be able to finance that also. So St. Kitts and Nevis, minus 16.11%. That's also 2 digits. They are also considerable. They did not hit their targets of 5% during the last years, and of course in there we had a, we had a decline there in 2017. And what's happening with St. Kitts and Nevis on the inflation side? It is happening minus 0.88. So St. Kitts and Nevis prices are also going down. And the debt to GDP. This is below the 60% debt to GDP. Let me see here. In there, 2015 it was 63.6%, and now 57. So it was 57. They were really great, below 60%. But what's happening when the GDP drops? It will have repercussions for the debt to GDP. I expect this to move up. And let's look at the loans by economic activity 49.8% loan, almost 50% is loans. So if you have a huge debt decrease of the economy, then probably people are losing their jobs, and this will also have effect on the personal loans, paying personal loans. So I'm quite interested in the loans, how much the loans, the default on the loans are, or the non-performing loans are in the Eastern Caribbean. If you know anything about that, you want to know more, let me know. And here you see 8.4%, 8.4%. So what is striking me is that agriculture, there is less loans of agriculture compared to other. Construction is there. You see distributive trades. Probably this is like importing, and you also have tourism, but there is less agriculture and fisheries. So are we investing in agriculture and fisheries in the Eastern Caribbean? I mean, you don't see it from these pictures, and I'm quite interesting. Are you working? Maybe you are working in the agriculture and fisheries. I know that St. Martin wants to develop agriculture and fisheries. I know that a friend of mine on LinkedIn, maybe he is investing in farms, so maybe he can comment on this. Are you receiving investments for agriculture and fisheries? Are you able to finance that? Now, the reason why I'm saying that is agriculture has proved to be very important during these COVID-19 times, because you have to have food security, you have to have food resiliency, and if you are not seeing loans for agriculture, that means that it's actually not being developed, or it is only being developed with other money from outside. So that's what you have St. Kitts and Nevis. Now St. Lucia, we are going to look at the data from St. Lucia. Now the growth rate, it is strange that this data is not there, because for the other islands there is data regarding this. So maybe this is a mistake. Maybe it is not picking up on the website, but this is interesting to see. And then we have inflation. So inflation is minus 0.5, so also going down. Now, debt to GDP, 64% for St. Lucia, and it is higher than the benchmark of 60%. Okay. I've heard stories that the IMF is actually saying for small island economies or big ocean states, it needs to be 40%. So for Curacao, for instance, they are saying that 60% is too high. They wanna, because 60% is for the for the Europe, and they want us to move towards a target of 40% of GDP. Now that is really a target that islands cannot achieve right now. I know that Suriname, Aruba, Curacao, we all have much higher in projections of the debt to GDP in 2020, because we are running deficits. And that builds the debt, and then the debt to GDP is going to go up. So St. Lucia, 56%, 56.4% is personal loan. So I can imagine that also here you have like mortgages, you have impact, etc. So let me know more about what you think about St. Lucia. And then St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So the final one, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have here minus 5%. So this is also low compared to the other ones, because the other ones were like 14%, 15%, 25%. So this St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's interesting. Why didn't we have double digit here? But still, minus 5% is a huge one. They were already having some before in 2019. It was a low grade. of 0.49. That's actually no growth at all, and they had like a lower grade in there. So maybe they are less dependent from tourism than the other ones. Okay, they have other areas, because once you have tourism, this drop is going to be much higher. And then St. Vincent, the prices are also decreasing. The debt to GDP also high, 70%. You see, 70% of debt to GDP, much higher than the 60%, and it was also 82% in 2016. So I expect this, of course, to go up again. Now let's look at the personal loans, 77.2%. Now that's a huge one. That is a lot of personal loans. So that means that those banks, they would have probably non-performer loans for sure there. It will, in 2020, it will grow higher. So there you have it. You have it. And I'm going to show you the social media for me to link with me. Now I'm going to close out now. So if you stayed here, thank you very much. If you stay with me 36 minutes. So why did I stay so much on this topic? Because you see the gross domestic product, the GDP figures, that is the indicator that everybody is looking at. Everybody is looking at the GDP. It's very important. So I wanted to debunk the myth that there is no data, and you see that. So we have been doing this series for some time right now, and we will continue. If there is any indicator that you want to get, there's any indicator and it's a macroeconomic indicator, let me know what you think. So today, Friday, tomorrow we will not continue, of course, but we will go on next week on Monday, 4 o'clock AST, Eastern Time, and 4 o'clock we will move and show you more data, more information, and debunking. And remember to subscribe. Remember to get in at CaribbeanStrategicBoardroom.com/waitlist, because then you raise your hand that you want to be notified that once I have finished what I have for you, for the great 50 people only can have this. You will be first to know. You will be first to know, and it's going to be crazy. I'm really I'm hoping that you are in, and it is free right now to get in. Get on that wait list to be notified when I'm going live. So, gross domestic product. That's not a good story. It is a bad story for the Eastern Caribbean. There is actually contraction. The Eastern Caribbean is in a recession, in a deep recession right now, and probably people are also losing their jobs, etc. So let me know what you think about this situation. Let me know what these data have shown you. Let me know how you think we can change this data beyond COVID. Let me know what kind of simulation you would like to have. And also let me know if you are struggling with data. What's your biggest question? What is your biggest challenge that you are struggling right now with data? And what kind of analysis do you want to do? So type it in the comments and get into that list. And maybe last thing, I want you to put this on your wall. I want you to put this episode on your wall so that all the people from the Eastern Caribbean can check. So you're doing me a great favor by doing that, because you're spreading the word. You're spreading more people. It won't cost you anything, and people will be grateful for you. So that's it. You can reach me. We will be here again Monday. 4 o'clock. See you. Bye.